Call her my little Deborah Darcy. I love a party. I wanna throw a party. So bring the Rossi. We gon' burn them all in till we both get glossy. Now she wanna stay. That's when she lost me. Say she soaking wet when the sauce me down. Never had a real nigga, you got me now. You was walking straight, but you knocked me down. If it was wars, then I knocked them down. She's a very freaky girl. Don't bring out a mama. First you get a 9, then you get a number, then you get some brains in the front seat of the Hummer. Then you get some brains in the front seat of the Hummer. She's a girl. I ain't even know it was like that. Made it buzz fast, bought it right back. Sucked a nigga dead, brought my life back. Pussy so wet, I need a life jacket. Fuck me so good, shit was like magic. Need it real bad, I'm a slight addict. I'm addicted to you, girl, you my night habit. I be in that thing like a jackrabbit. She's a very freaky girl. Don't bring out a mama. First you get a 9, then you get a number, then you get some brains in the front seat of the Hummer. Then you get some brains in the front seat of the Hummer. She's a girl. Peace. How's everybody doing this evening? It's the Hood Mystic representing www.hoodmystic.com and altercreations.net. Today I'm going to touch on some touchy subjects. So a disclaimer right now, I'm not here to offend anybody, to make anybody feel any kind of way. I'm simply here to discuss my notes and the things that have been revealed to me and the kind of dots that I've been connecting. If any of these dots don't make any sense, please feel free to, hit me up at the email hoodmystic@gmail.com or reach out to any of our sites, hoodmystic.com, altercreations.net. We're easy to get contacted. And so, turn down this news music. And so today, this kind of stems on my Conscious News Network series. You might want to check that playlist to catch the direction that we've been going in previous episodes. But it seems that without trying, we are connecting the dots to a lot of this matrix based upon studying the news and then studying the particular codes and letting things sit with us for a minute, and then following spirit and letting spirit guide us to what we should be looking into and getting and gaining more exposure or more clarity into what's actually going on and freeing ourselves from particular matrices. So with this particular video, I intend to open people's eyes. This video is not particularly for people my age. It's particularly for people who are like young adults. So if you are my age and you might have younger siblings, younger relatives, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, and they have a good head on their shoulders, give them this video and maybe they can have more context on what's actually happening when music is being played, when media is being put before them, and things of that nature. We would just hope that the youth is in full awareness of what's being put before them. So in this video, even though I'm going to discuss a lot of information and put forth a lot of different slides, there's 3 main points that I'm trying to put forward. The first point is that I'm trying to show the connections to Freemasonry in theater. And then from there, I'm going to show the connections between Freemasonry and Black music. And then finally, I want to connect how hip hop is actually the new minstrel show and its implications not on the adults or the elders of the community, but the implications on the youth moving forward. And if we could protect one youth from making a wrong life decision based upon particular stimuli, then we're doing a good job. And so my goal with this video is not a big, large goal, but my goal is to hopefully reach out to one young man or one young woman who's possibly going down the wrong path and thinking that this path is somewhat glamorize, but to ultimately show them that no, the roots of sensationalism is very much based in sinisterism and culture creation. When you think about hip hop, you think about something that's created for us by us, right? That's what is being stated when mentioning. But if you really think about it, is it really for us for one, and is it by us for two? These two quotes that I have is from Mark Twain and Frederick Douglass. The first quote is, "If I could have the nigger show back again in its pristine purity, I should have little use for the opera." And so what that means is, if you give, human beings a slapping beat with some nice chord progressions, with, some nice sound effects, with, a good rhythm and things of that nature, that's much more enjoyable than somebody going screaming at a high pitch and, sitting at a theater for, so once the introduction of minstrelsism came into the American population, they just wanted more and more and more. And so generally the American consumption basically from its inception has consumed black art, but it's not in the way that you might think it is, because Frederick Douglass goes on to quote, "Blackface performers are the filthy scum of white society who have stolen from us complexion denied them by nature in which to make money and pander to the corrupt taste of their white fellow citizens." And when I read this quote, I was kind of stunned and a little bit of jarred, because generally blackface performers are the filthy scum of white society. I'm gonna be honest, when I thought about blackface performers, I didn't necessarily think of them as quote unquote white people. I generally thought it as a heavily satirized version of a black person, like make this black person put on black face to make a fool of him or to make him feel bad. But that actually wasn't the case when you do your studies, but we'll get back to that. The first thing that we got to get to, because if we're going to talk about blackface in the minstrel circuit and things of that nature, that's not the root. It didn't start there. It actually started in Great Britain, and Great Britain is very key to kind of focus on London in particular, because when you think about colonialism, part of colonialism is multiple parts. There's the technology aspect, where they're providing different services that we can't access, whether it's through transportation, whether it's through particular reading materials, and colonialism helps in that effect in a global economy, giving you an outstretched reach to get to places that you normally couldn't get to. And another thing is violence. Colonialism spread its way based upon violence, but another way that colonial markets itself throughout the world is through entertainment. And the entertainment industry, if one was to abstract and try to figure out what is the origin of the entertainment industry, one would have to say Shakespeare. And so if Shakespeare is the origin of theater, and how did Shakespeare portray black actors or black roles? Because in a majority of Shakespeare's play, there is a black element, whether you're talking about Macbeth, whether you're talking about Romeo and Juliet, or the most famous is Othello. And in Shakespeare's plays, and this is not limited, and we'll get into this a little bit further, but it was generally white men who dressed up as black men in stage productions. And when you think about Freemasonry reveres Shakespeare. So either he's an honorable member or he is and I say he, right? But there's no real evidence that Shakespeare even truly exists. When you ask scholars who is Shakespeare, you get a slew of different names. Because what you have is a particular work. You don't have a particular person. And the Shakespeare mystery, if you would like peel back some layers, the Shakespeare mystery might be rooted in racism based upon the reality of Amelia Bassano. I found that picture interesting because it's the same picture as the picture from Us with Lupita, and she's taking off the mask of herself. And that picture was, it's interesting. But a little bit about Amelia. She was a Moroccan Jew. And she was what we would call a black woman. She has been quoted as, or like people who knew her as being a quote unquote dark lady, black woman, and things of that nature. The interesting thing about Amelia is that she's a world renowned poet. She's not the first poet known in England, but she is the most, I would say, the first person to put out a book with feminist literature in it. And Maya Angelou, in referencing one of Shakespeare's poems, when in disgrace with fortune in men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and trouble deal heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself and curse my fate. And Maya Angelou stated that that's got to be a black girl who wrote that. So where people might say, do you know who Shakespeare is? No. Well, it's evidence that it's this black woman. Well, it ain't her. Like, like you got to really understand the psychology, though. If I don't know who a person is, and I present a particular option for who this person may be, then you automatically say no. Then I'm a question you, because you didn't even investigate it. You didn't even particularly look into it. You just automatically assume that this lady is not Shakespeare, and so it all kinds of ties into what's happening now. If you really think about it, it's all mythology and it's all circular. So generally, a lot of times people can get and talk about current events, and they can seem like they know more about what's going on about it than you do. These people are not special. These people just simply understand the patterns and cycles of life, and this is what we all generally try to figure out. Is not to be this great person that knows all of these things, but to simply understand the patterns. You could really understand a lot about life as we move forward. So to tie in Amelia Bassano or Amelia Lanier to Freemason, if you just kind of extrapolate the word Mason, it breaks down to my sons. And you got to really understand that this is the formation of these particular secret societies, one would might say. And before these secret societies don't exist, and there will be a lot of particular codes and secrets and a lot of cryptic codes that really allude to particular things that are real, but in our minds we just cannot get there because we are trapped based upon thinking that black people aren't that clever, black people aren't that intelligent, black people aren't that smart. But you got to really extrapolate yourself to a point in time before 1776 or 1492 and things of that nature, where black people were held in high regard and lived in high standing. So we have to come back to that point. And so to say that this woman could or could not be Shakespeare, you would have to get the book Dark Lady and come up with your own conclusion to this. So we got Amelia, we got Shakespeare, we got the Masons, okay, Am I weird? Am I not making sense? Let's tie this thing in. Let's make this thing one. So just recently, me and my wife, we stayed. Well, we've been doing this test. We've been finding these like sacred places, like sacred ancient landmarks, and we've just tried to figure out, is there a particular secret society, lodge, or temple surrounding these particular landmarks? And lo and behold, there generally is. By coincidence, we got a hotel room across the street from an Elks lodge, and we were like, it's catty corner again, because we always notice that the lodge or the temple is always catty corner to the actual ancient site. So generally you'll have a lodge. If you look cat a corner in one of those directions, 10 times out of 10 there's an ancient landmark that these people use as energy sources. So that's just a little key to kind of pay attention to. But other than that, the Elks Lodge started in 1868 and was a social club for minstrel show performers called the Jolly Quirks. And so the Elks is not just, something that, just exists without it by itself. Is actually an offshoot of Freemasonry. And so when you talk about different secret societies and different groups and different splinter groups, they're all offshoots of offshoots of offshoots of offshoots. It's all family members relating to different family members and things of this nature. And it's all about creating a particular worldview that wouldn't exist without these particular events. And you have to understand that they have become completely sophisticated in this particular endeavor. So here we are. The Elks started off as a minstrel show performers in line with Shakespeare. Elks borrowed rituals and practices from Freemasonry. And so when you think about lodges and when you think about secret societies and you think about planned events, you have to understand that every city you go to, every town you go to, every town, every village, 10 times out of 10, it is chartered by a Masonic lodge, whether it's the Rotary Club, whether it's the Elks Lodge, whether it's the Freemason, Prince Hall, etc. And you, possibly being ignorant, might want to join one of these lodges and clubs one day for the experience, but I would advise not to. But that's just my personal opinion. You should do whatever your heart pulls you to do. So generally, these lodges had a particular function, though. These lodges were to put on public spectacles, perform public rites, whether in ceremony or out of ceremony. And it is not so people could applaud. The whole goal of lodges, the whole goal of performance is to create a level of authenticity so the audience doesn't know the difference. Like, they really feel like, okay, this is an authentic experience, so I'm gonna buy into this with my emotions. And if you could get the public to buy into things with their emotions, then from there you're allowed to implement all kinds of policies and just completely put the public to sleep, because they're not even operating on their normal factor or faculties anymore. They're operating off the faculties that you've presented by really presenting yourself in a discreet fashion, or in a fashion where there's more to you than presents the eye. And I know, like, the idea of secret society and the idea of public rituals don't make sense to you if you're not a part of it. Generally, there are levels to this. There are levels of individuals who know nothing about this, and they are just a keen observer to things that are going on. And if you just look at life from the surface, then this conversation is not for you. But if you look at life and you're trying to figure out, like, what the fuck is wrong with black people? Like, why do they do what they do? It's a tradition. It is a tradition. And I'm going to stay on this slide for a second, because I'm just going to hit on some points about Blackface in the Minstrel Show, and I'm going to use it as background as I discuss, current events. So what is Blackface? what is the Black minstrel tradition? So by now we've gathered that it is started from the theatrical stage plays of Shakespeare that has been brought over to America via colonialism and, you know, the art of setting up cities and colonialism. Connected to that was the setting up of lodges and setting up the secret societies that would be intricate and create a narrative and weave a web to control the population. See, what needs to happen in a new country with a whole set of people is that you have to create their culture. You create their culture. You create a culture to replace their native culture. And so you want to replace that culture so good that the people think that the culture that you created is not even your culture that you created. They actually think that they created it, and that's what we're at. So generally the Black minstrel tradition wasn't specifically for Black audiences. It was for mixed audiences. It was for Black audiences and white audiences, because the white audiences needed to look at the Black people in the crowd like, okay, they're enjoying it, so this must be the real shit, so I'm gonna get into this. And imagine Black people looking at white people portray Black people and like figuring, I can get with this, and I can kind of get with this. So eventually, to make the show more robust, people like Master Juba, they were incorporated into the minstrel show, actual Black people, and put on blackface, so the audience would then think that, okay, these white people really get down, like, because once you put on blackface, you're no longer Black, you're white portraying Black. And so, not to be confusing, the culture was to be created post-slavery. It was supposed to create the culture post-slavery because Blacks were being freed. A lot of Blacks weren't freed in 1865. Some Blacks were freed before that, especially in New York, where a lot of the minstrel show, a lot of where you have quote unquote hip hop, or the birth of hip hop, or the birth of minstrel shows, it all started in New York. And so these northern New York guys would really work hard to create a shtick that would align with the Black population, so Black people could really buy into what they were doing. And the message that they were trying to portray is that being on a plantation was good. When you come to a minstrel show, you're not gonna hear about the slave master whipping you. You're not gonna hear about you getting ripped away from your family. You're not gonna be talking about being of deep servitude. Nope, you're gonna talk about singing, dancing, and having fun. This is where the term clowning comes from. Clowning. Actually, clowns are started from blackface, started from the minstrel show, but it was actually Black people who were putting on whiteface, believe it or not. So when you see a clown, you're seeing a Black person portray a white person, and the minstrel was vice versa. And this was the origins of minstrel show. But as you can see, as the clown evolved into a circus, the minstrel evolved into a hip-hop artist. And so here we are today, where the idea with minstrel show is to have exaggerated features, to have exaggerated prose, to just kind of just be that dude, to just be the ultimate of ultimate, like you don't want to feel like you're a slave. You want to feel like you done came out of slavery. And so you so real of a person that you're not a slave. You're a real COON. And that was the idea. It was actually a song called Real COON. And I don't like saying that word for some reason. I spell that one out. But the idea was authenticity. The idea was keeping it real. And the realer you were, the more that you were able to portray a particular thing that you weren't. Right? Like, I'm just trying to put my mind, like trying to put myself in a time. Like, you get up there on stage, right? Like Dan Emmett, he gets on stage and he's like, Mama Joe, and like he's just like extra niggerish or whatever. And then he like get off stage, wipe the blackface off, and he's like, hi, I'm Dan. How are you guys? What's going on? And it's just like, yo, that shit is crazy to me. Like, because I see that shit today in a certain way, in a certain aspect. But just going deeper, they created these things called coon songs, or CON songs, and the idea of a coon song was a person who was an outlaw sex symbol, and his adventure, and he had many adventures, and he fought people, he killed people, he took on all types of people, and he was a liberator too. He would liberate the people, and these coon characters, they could be wild and crazy as they needed to be, but the thing of it was that nothing ever happened. But it wasn't like these men could be this way in real life, because these were actually white men portraying black men. So generally, if a black person was to act as if these minstrel people were to perform, he was setting himself up for big trouble. And so a lot of people like Frederick Douglass was like, this is crazy. And then like moving forward, you have people like Bill Cosby like, yo, you niggas is crazy, y'all need to stop. And then you see what happens to him. So generally, speaking about things like this is not really like the coolest thing to do or the safest thing to do, because it literally wakes black people up to truth. And generally the whole thing is to keep you outside of the truth, to keep you in a matrix. Like, okay, I'm happy, but you're still on a goddamn plantation. I got a lot of money, but you're still on the plantation. I'm comfortable, but you're still on a plantation. And so the idea of the minstrel is to inundate you with stereotypes, and what would be something real is not necessarily real. It's a particular parody, and it's something that these groups are trying to, this is what they think black people should act like. Mind you, people like Mozart, people like, Master Juba, people that really exist. So you wouldn't necessarily say that minstrel was all bad, because from there you get a lot of beautiful art forms and things of that nature, but you do see the issue with it in its roots. And you want to kind of like, if you guys want to do minstrel, then why don't you just be yourself? What's the use of putting on all of this blackface and performing and doing all of these stereotypes and things of this nature? And one thing that I do want to reiterate about the Minstrel Show is that it was for mixed audiences. It wasn't specifically for black people, it wasn't specifically for white people. And when you think about hip hop and when you think about popular culture, it's not specifically for black people, nor is it specifically for white people. To be a prominent hip hop artist, to be somebody who has clout or who has pull, you have to really resonate with black people, and you have to really resonate with white people. And the way that you do that is by keeping it real. And it is not to say that you're really doing it, but you got to make us believe it. And so this is more of the Minstrel Show and the minstrel tradition being continued. So yeah, and another thing about that, a lot of these artists, they died young too. That's another thing about the black minstrel artists. A lot of them died young. So when you think about hip hop artists, they die, and not just a recent turn of events, every two, like I listen to hip hop, like I'm a hip hop fan, and I don't just listen to like normal hip hop on the radio. I'll listen to the young dude stuff, like people like I can't, LA Capone, or people like It's a lot, man. Just like I didn't write that down, but just a lot of like hip hop artists with a lot of talent that die. You know, they die, and they might not even understand why. Like, it's extremely peculiar if you follow hip hop. It's not even the famous deaths or the sensationalized deaths that I even be paying attention to as much. But just the low-key artists that die from the Chinks drugs and, you know, all the Little Peeps and the Mac Millers and the things of that nature, like, it's pretty wild. And even when you talk about, like, the Eminems, like, that's another form of minstrel, the rise of the white rapper and things of that nature. It's another form of minstralism. This is not anything new. It's literally been happening over and over and over and over again. Another aspect of minstralism that I want to talk to, and I'm saying all of this with the hopes that you do your own research, with the hopes that you look into some of these different stereotypes and see how this stuff plays out in real terms. So I'm not gonna get into every single stereotype, even though I was tempted to. I just simply wanted to deal with the level of the zip coon or the real coon, and then the level of the wench, prima donna, and the mulatto. And so with all minstralism, the idea was to be authentic, keep it real. And when it came to men dressing up as women, the same rules applied. You had to be so good as a woman that men and women didn't look at you as a man any longer. They looked at you as a purebred woman. And these men dressed in expensive clothes, and they dressed the highest of the heights. They got the, you know, number one cosmetics, and they were like the Cardi B of now, you know. These mulattoes or prima donnas or wenches, they would be like highly sexual and highly, like, you know, into, like, you know, stripping, you know, basically. And how you became a prima donna, how you became a top wench, is that you had to be accurate, and people had to buy in. Like, you know, you had to really come across. So when you look at female artists today and the way that they behave on social media, like, I got a full grown woman that I live with, like a wife, and she don't behave nothing like that. And it's not even like, oh, she's young. Like, I don't, like, women didn't even act like that when they were young. You know, it's gotta be a level of either actual male organs or masculine energy that is overtaking these women and having them act in a certain way, and for it to be so accurate and so to be so real that you don't even think about it, you don't even question it. You think that, you know, this is how women's supposed to be, or even that, you know, you might be executing some particular right, but you are as I think about it, not a rite as in RIGHT, but you're actually taking part in a rite, a RITE, a ritual. So be yourself. And if being yourself is, you know, flaunting your body, dressing in expensive clothes, spending a lot of money on cosmetics, fake hair, fake nails, fake breasts, understand that that's not a feminine trait, because you actually are born with those parts. You're actually born with hair and breasts and nails and things of that nature, and soft skin. And if you take care of it, there's no need for you to buy fake things. Actually, these practices that a lot of women take up under are from these women minstrels today. So that's another thing that you might want to take and do some research on. So now what I'm going to try to do is connect the minstrel to hip hop. So to recap, the minstrel is a European's parody of black culture. And I would listen to some hip hop songs, like listen to them. Like sometimes I can listen to music and I could be like, yo, this is the jam, this is the shit, and I'll block out the words and just like, just vibe, like, just get with it. And then sometimes I'll abstract myself for a second. I really sit there and listen to the words. And a lot of times I listen to hip hop songs and they're talking about, fuck that bitch or I kill this nigga. And I would be like, man, this really do sound like white man words coming out of black voice. No, fuck that nigga, I'ma kill you, or whatever aggression that you could show towards another black person, a black man, black woman, and things of that nature. That's not even how I get down. I don't even get down like that. I ain't about to kill you or shoot you or beat you up or be mad that you talk to your girl or take your girl. I ain't gonna do nothing like that. But based upon the minstrality of hip hop, I just made that word up. I like that word. The minstrality of hip hop, it is a European parody of black culture. This book is taken from a book called Darker Days, and it's speaking on how the Minstrel Show is connected to hip hop. It ties into like the Dave Chappelle, how like Dave Chappelle's last skit was him doing like the Minstrel Show, where like Yin Yang Twins was like they were rapping, and Dave Chappelle was like the minstrel in their ear, like, do a whole bunch of fuck shit and like, promoting them to do fuck shit. And it was just like at that very moment where he kind of snapped and went to Africa. And to me, that was kind of the spirits waking him up, like, nigga, you better stop while you ahead. Like, you ain't gonna get no more chances after this. So he stopped, and that's the power of the minstrel life. If you get caught up into it, then you are a actual proponent of it. You are a wheel or a tool of it. You're not bigger than the matrix that you're in. So when you think about popular music and you think about the recording industry, then you have to tie the minstrel circuit into it. You don't get the popular themes and the popular grooves and the syncopated rhythms and the particular images of what a black man should look like, whether he's a dandy or a lowlife. All of this is tied into minstrel music. And so popular music and technology is also deeply linked. So certain compositions, like say for instance a Mozart or a Beethoven and things of that nature, like you can't just play that. And why is this important? Because the music industry at its origin, it wasn't music that you could listen to. It was like, I just came up with this cold ass jam. Take this piece of paper, go home, play it for your family, tell me what you think about it. So that was how we used to listen to music, or Americans used to listen to music, by having particular song notes and playing those song notes when they get home while your family stands around you and they get their jig on while daddy or mommy is at the piano getting busy. Now you got to understand, if Mozart and Bach and they giving you sheet music and you like, well, baby, I can't play this is a little complicated. The minstrel, what they did, they came with them syncopated rhythms, like, some easy shit that you could, it was easy and it had a nice groove and bounce to it. So when it came to the minstrel music, that was what the companies were selling. Like, the companies didn't want that complicated shit. They needed that simple shit so they could take home and play it for their family. Fast forward to 2018, you don't want to hear no John Coltrane or Alice Coltrane or Rashid Latif or nothing like that. You want to hear the Cardi B. You want to hear the Kodak Black, because it's simple. You don't have to really do much. And even though you ain't playing this shit no more, like, I guess your brain is still tapped into that ancestral link to where you used to play it, or you were searching for something easier. And so from there you get popular music. And popular music and technology is necessary because when it comes to publishing and record contracts and things of that nature. That's a lot of paperwork. That's a lot of technology involved. And so therefore there has to be a system of, who can we let in this club and who can we not let in this club. And so if we're going to tie hip hop to the minstrel tradition, where it's all tied into keeping it real and keeping it authentic, then we have to understand that keeping it real and keeping it authentic is not necessarily about the life. It's particularly about the art form. So where you once was a real coon, you now are a real nigga. And you would take pride in that because you didn't do your history and you didn't do the research. And I was a young man myself, and I know what it's like to really take on these stereotypes and really try to strive for these stereotypes, not because we're ignorant or stupid, but because we think that black men created these stereotypes. We actually think that, these are part of, life goals. And so when it came to creating hip hop, people would create it and their parents would be like, cut that bullshit off. You know how stupid you sound? And you would look at your parents like, you don't know what you're talking about, because this is some new shit. Like, this is new and I'm about to get some attention. And from there, like, we really set ourselves up, because when you think about hip hop and you think about artists today, a vast majority of them have gang affiliations. Whether it's the Cardi B's, whether it's the Chris Browns, whether it's the Jay-Z's, the Young Jeezys, the Snoop Dogg's. I mean, if you listen to West Coast rap, they're gonna drop a gang affiliation secret. What's Bracken, or I'm from Bompton, like, all of these is gang terminology and things of that nature. And so they would tell you that this gang is a neighborhood gang, and it started in a neighborhood to protect the neighborhood. But in the same breath, they'll tell you about how large the gang is. It's 30 to 50,000 members long, and it has a network throughout the world. You'll find a gang member in every jail, every police force, and every army, what is that? Army. Yeah, army, whatever. It's a conscious dude that I seen who was a blood and he was in the army. I said, you got to be kidding me. And people listen to him, but that's beyond the point. Most rap artists are a part of gangs, and if you can understand that most gangs are a part of secret societies, and maybe you wouldn't realize that at a lower level, but gangs are organized, bro. There's lieutenants, there's captains, there's generals, there's higher circles, there's meetings, there's all types of shit that you're not privy to. And I'm sure the leader of a gang is not just the leader of a gang. Like, he has to have a different connection or a connection to other things. And so therefore, where you have Bloods and Crips, you also have Skull and Crossbones, and you also have the Freemasons, and you have colors red and blue, and then you have this country, and then you have Britain is known as the Redcoats, and a lot of different things where a lot of rappers claim red and other rappers claim blue. And these colors are symbols, and these symbols, they really lie deep in the foundation of the relationship between Great Britain and USA. And I had to start from the beginning to get to this point that I hope is not a super stretch of the imagination to imagine that in order for a rapper to make it, that he has to be a part of these secret circles. And I'm sure that being presented to a rapper is a choice that one must have to make, especially if he's associated and affiliated with a quote unquote street gang. Like, what is a street gang? Could we say, for instance, for a fact that we know street gangs exist that don't have any higher level or order or connection to secret societies. I can't necessarily say, especially when you talk about drug dealing and you talk about guns. No drugs are created and manufactured in the United States except weed, and no guns are being made here, really. So generally, and we're not going to the gun store buying guns like that. We're getting those guns given to us. Throughout history, you've heard about governments funding particular factions and other forms of government forming other factions so these factions could war. You hear about that in the Iran-Contra, and this Iran-Contra actually funded the drug war, actually funded the drugs. So if the CIA is a part of Iran-Contra and the Iran-Contra helps fund the gangs with the crack epidemic and all of that, do you think the CIA wasn't privy to the street gangs? You think they just knew about the shit that was going on in Iran and Contra and just overlooked, some street gangs and just allowed them to grow based upon networking and business savvy? I don't think so. I think that when you look at the reality of gangs from a eye-to-eye level, gangs have ruined families, lives, and communities, and I don't find nothing about them that deserves to be sensationalized. They evoke and provoke fear in the community, and brotherhood could be established outside of colors, in my personal opinion. So based upon particular funding and protection and rights from these secret societies, then we could stretch and venture off to say that most rappers are Masons. And if we could establish that fact, then we could proceed to the Masonic funeral. Now, I didn't invent the concept of a Masonic funeral. I researched the idea of a Masonic funeral. And so, like we said earlier, each city, state, town in this country, I don't know how it is in other countries, but at least in this country, every city, state, town that I've been to has been incorporated by particular lodges. And lodges sit on the charter of most cities, states. So what are they doing? I don't know. I have no idea. But what I can say is that they're there. And I'm not invited. So a Masonic funeral is a rite afforded to 33 degree Masons that are in good standing. This ceremony is performed for those who may or may have not known his works, and is for the public to know this master's work. And the idea of a Masonic funeral is that it could be a public ceremony. And these are most of the sacred rites are performed indoors. A Masonic funeral is performed outdoors. And when you speak about these particular events, you would really have to get into a book that I got that I love, that it's hard to put down. It's 484 pages, but you can read it in a week because it's that lit. Ritual America, The Secret Brotherhoods and Their Influence on American Society by Adam Parfrey and Craig Heimbichner. Craig Heimbichner ain't never lied. That's one thing I do know. There is no help for the widow's son. If you want to Google public rites and have more idea of what a Masonic funeral is, just look no further. Google Philando Castile and widow's son, and listen to that interview that his mother and uncle do on CNN. At the end of the video, his uncle cries out a Masonic rite. You also see Masonic funeral rites in the murder of Stephon Clark. Once again, Google the CNN interview with Stephon Clark's video and Don Lemon, and you see him ringing the bell. When he asks him questions, he don't answer. He just rings the bell. It's kind of alert. It's kind of like all of the different lodges connected to whatever lodge Stefan and his brother is connected to. And then you can see in the funeral, you get, Reverend Al Sharpton and, a host of others, just the same way as, it's probably going to be a televised funeral. And, people are going to perform their rituals, perform their rites, and generally the good ones are the ones that's based in authenticity and the ones that you can believe, the ones that you can feel, the ones that you can get your emotions tied into. And then the other ones you can sit and laugh at. And so to understand this, though, to understand public ritual, you really got to study it. You really got to understand it from a deep level. Things are not always what they seem. The first appearance deceives many. The intelligence of a few perceives what has been carefully hidden. And so the intelligence of a few, I don't hope this video goes viral. You don't have to share it. You don't have to promote it. You don't have to tell people about this cool ass video you've seen on YouTube. If anything, I would just hope that you will open your eyes and understand that there's more to life than what you see. There's something deeper looming under the surface. And how we can pay attention to that is through names and places. Now, if you've been following this channel, I've been talking every episode. It seems as though I talk about London. And the last video that I talked about, not even the last, it would have to have been episode 2 about the 21 Savage and Brexit thing. And I was speaking about how we need to really pay attention to March 31st, the Brexit exit. I said the Brexit exit. I'm hungry. I want some breakfast. That's random. But breakfast, Brexit, exit, it all rhyme with me. But I told people something going on. It's all good. All right. I told people to, look out for March 31st. That shit is documented because that was the day of Brexit. Lo and behold, I don't necessarily know what happened on March 31st because the news had got taken over. And I watched all of the events play out. I studied the trends. I was like, do people really care? Or are people caught up in this sensationalism of it based upon the theatrics? Because this was something that was recorded. Something that people could watch over and over again. I've seen people on YouTube said they watched the video 1,000 times just examining it, and I've been seeing it once, but it does seem as though it is a ritual of some sort. And that's unfortunate because we don't want to talk about things like that. But if the shit is presented to me the way it's presented to me, then I got to talk about it. And I apologize if this offends anybody, but I'm just simply dealing with the etymology and the mythology and the rite associated with the mythology. So if you Google what Lauren means laurel tree. And if you do a quick search of the laurel tree meaning in history, it would say that Caesar wore the laurel tree. But even before that, there was a ritual of Apollo and Daphne. And so the mythology and the rite is this. And I just thought this was interesting. So Apollo is mocking the god of love, Eros, because he doesn't believe in Eros. And Eros is just prime spirituality. And so Eros is like, I am the god of love. And Apollo says, I got archers too. I'm an archer too. But what Apollo didn't realize is that Eros was the god of love. And we all have a level of love in our heart. Like, I can choose to love my wife. But if Eros comes apart and I meet a woman that I'm deeply in love with, then I have to tell my wife, like, I love this woman. Like, I don't know what it is, babe, but I love her. Like, and I don't know if I'm supposed to be with her or I've had this conversation with my wife before. Like, you have to honor Eros or you'll be in a space where you'll be really, really fucked up. Because it's not to say, you know, you have to leave your wife or go from girl to girl or man to man. It's just to say, like, you know, I have a real deep, sincere love for you and I can't really explain it, but I really love you. And I'm in a whole relationship with a wife and kid right now. And that sounds really crazy, but I'm going to just let you know. But that's besides the point. So Apollo couldn't come to that realization, so he mocked Eros. And so Eros was like, all right, I got one for you. You're not gonna insult Eros. When Eros comes in your life, when love comes in your life, when spirituality comes in your life, you are gonna have to follow it. And this is a story of alchemy as well. So he has 2 arrows, one of lead and one of gold. It's funny how that ties into everything with the alchemy, but everything is just tying in right now. But understanding that he shot Apollo with a gold arrow, instilling a god of passionate love for the river nymph Daphne. And so when he shot Apollo with the gold arrow, all Apollo wanted to do was love Daphne. He didn't give a damn about nothing else. And they're like, Apollo, you the god of the sun. You know, you got responsibilities, and you know, you are a part of our future. Apollo, we need you. And Apollo was like, no, I just need this pussy. And so generally, it was too much for Daphne, and Daphne begged and begged and begged Eros to just, I need to be free of him. I need to get away from him. And so Daphne was turned into a laurel tree. And so from there, Apollo vowed to honor Daphne forever and use his powers of eternal youth and immortality to render the laurel tree evergreen. And hey, that's crazy, babe. Remember we was talking about the pine tree? How the pine tree is a little bit older and a little bit wiser than the other trees, because the pine tree, it stays green forever. It don't, like, you know how trees, they shed, but the laurel tree or the evergreen or the pine tree is supposedly the tree that's forever. It represents eternal youth and it represents immortality. And it's so funny that my children, when I got off of work, this don't have nothing to do with nothing, but it might have everything to do with everything. It's a mound outside of my house, like a little small baby mound, because there used to be a tree there, but it's like, it just turned into a mound. And when I came home the other day, my children had on the mound like a whole bunch of pine cones. They're like, look, Dad, we made this for you. It was pretty cool. But it was like deeply symbolizing. But ultimately, this evergreen or this laurel tree, it's a cultural symbol. And Apollo represents poets and musicians. And so the laurel tree is a cultural symbol for him and other poets and musicians, and it's all rooted into love. And to me, that is the ritual and that is the rite being played out in front of us. And there's a lot of different other symbolizing and different other groups involved. Every time you look up, whether you're dealing with the LAPD or the CIA or the FBI, all of these groups tying into this ritual, it's some scary shit. And so, like I said, I don't care for nobody to share this video. I don't care for anybody to tell anybody about this video. I really put this video out for people who are looking at black culture, looking at this situation. And it's one thing, like, you know, if this behavior was concurrent with rapper deaths, then that would be one thing. Like, I could be like, oh, y'all always act like this when rappers die. But rappers die every 2 weeks. Google rappers who died in 2018, and just when you think you done, oh, you got a whole nother 30 minutes of niggas that's just dying because they decided to rap. And so it's a plan, you know. over this past year, I'm a hip hop baby, but this past year, I really been opening myself up to avant-garde jazz and John Coltrane and Yusuf Lateef and just a host of just good music, Parliament Funkadelics and things of that nature, and just kind of open my mind up to just the greatness and the beauty of what it is to be black. And it's not always to be a thug or to be a gangster. That's actually not our culture. That's actually somebody else's parody of us, of who they expected us to be. But hopefully what I can do is that I can change the narrative in one young black man's life, that he can really tie in and understand this whole understanding, your power is coming back. And with that power, the first thing that comes with that power is clarity. And so hopefully I provided some clarity to allow you to tap into some of your power as we move forward. Just thanks you for everybody that chose to join me on the live, and anybody that decided to watch this video for an hour and gain some particular knowledge that allowed them to do more research on the subject and maybe come up with a whole different understanding than I can, and probably let me know something and enlighten me to some things, because I wasn't there when all of these things are created. So I'm just simply sifting through the information, trying to put these things together and present some content for the listeners and subscribers. So don't share this video, but if you do like this content, please share and click the notifications bell to get updated and alerted to when I drop videos and content. My content schedule is random because I have 3 small children. My oldest child is 5, so there's no telling what's going on in my house. Every day is a surprise. And also trying to run 2 businesses between me and my wife and working a full-time job, things do get a lot of hectic, and I try to research as well. But multitasking is a gift from God, and I'm thankful for the ability to be able to do that. But with that being said, I'm gonna read through these comments. How'd y'all feel about this video? Too deep? Too crazy? Let me know. Thank you. Oh yeah. Tomorrow, family, I'm going to be doing live tarot readings. Don't know what time, so be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and make sure that it's clicked on always, so you always can be alerted to whenever I go live. But I want to go live with these tarot readings because I just been doing practice tarot readings for my cousin and my wife and things of that nature, and it's getting really, really intense. So I just want to help you guys. So here we go. Just getting deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole, and I pour everything out in these videos. So once I'm done with this video, I don't know what the next video is going to be, but I'm sure Spirit will alert me to something to study and something to bring to you people. So if you like my channel and want to support my channel, please paypal.me/thehoodmystic. I'm just a man out here trying to make it, support my family at the end of the day. And I just love knowledge and information that incites me and inspires me. So that's what I tried to present to you guys. So thank you for joining, and peace.